strategist. I am focused more in the developer space than some of my compatriots in the strategist space. So I am really focused heavily on early and growth stage startups, helping them find product market fit while building their early communities, in tandem with their product. And yeah, I'm thrilled to be here. I was telling the ladies that I have feelings about International Women's Day and that I think we don't do it well. It sort of feels like a sad celebration sometimes because it's a reminder of things being kind of wonky for women, and especially for women in tech. And so I'm really excited to be here and doing something different this year.
Me too. This is something, so I learned about International Women's Day a number of years ago. It's been on my radar for a while. And as soon as I first learned about it, I'm like, wow, wouldn't it be cool to do some kind of event? As soon as I heard about it, I'm like, I would love to do an event because I'm just such an event geek. I was like, as soon as I hear something, I'm like, event. And I'm just so glad that I literally, for everybody who's listening, I literally reached out to these lovely ladies like last week at the last end of the week. And I was like, hey, do you want to do something? And so we were able to get this going in literally less than a few days. So
that's the best way.
Huh?
Sometimes that's the best way.
Sometimes it's the best way. So we're glad you're here. So we're going to kick off the conversation with sharing about a couple women who have been people that you've admired. Yeah, Jamie's asking about the link to live stream. I will throw that in the chat. Jamie, do you want to kick us off with the conversation?
Sure. I have so many women in our industry that I admire. We have an incredible profession for women, and I see us really thriving in our profession. I mean, I'll do a couple of shout outs here. My number one is always Selena Zamora, and she's gonna blush and roll her eyes, but she is one of those people that you just see community resonates with her deeply. But I don't want to only talk about community women today. And somebody who has been top of mind for me lately has been Melanie Perkins, the CEO of Canva. Just watching her and reading about her journey and realizing that this product that she has created has become so pivotal in my day-to-day work. I even just sent off some birthday party invitations that I created on my phone on there the other day for my 14-year-old. I sent them off to be printed through Canva as well. So, I mean, it's not only is she incredible, she overcame, 100 rejections from investors. And we know that women only get 2% of investment from VC. And she is one of the youngest female CEOs of a tech startup that's valued at over $1 billion. And I mean, she's incredible. And then not only that is she incredible, but the product she's built is incredible. And so being able to see someone just really nail it and, just keep going, and that resilience is just so admirable.
I'm so glad you brought her up in the first. I was researching as you and I were talking about her in the beginning when we talked about this last week, and I didn't realize it started with her being a student and doing the yearbook. And I had no idea about that, trying to make it easier to design a yearbook and stuff. So one thing I loved about it was she was solving a real world problem and found a way to make that into a massive success. So just amazing.
And I mean, talk about increasing accessibility, so many people want to do creative things, but they don't have the time or the skill or whatever and to develop the skill. And so they don't get that opportunity. So, I mean, Canva is incredible. It's one of those things that you can pick it up and you can just start going and you don't have to do a bunch of ramp up. And so that's near and dear to my heart. And I'm sure both of you as well, for user education and onboarding and things like that. If I can just pick up the product and go, that is the gold standard.
Totally agree.
Laura, do you want to chime in with your?
Yeah, I actually, so on the other end of the spectrum, from someone who's extremely well known, a name who came to mind for me is Taylor Harrington. And she is the community lead at groove.oo, which is, for anyone who doesn't know, it's online co-working. And what I really appreciate about Taylor, well, first of all, she has the most sunshiny personality. I've never seen her not just be smiling and so gracious. She radiates joy, but she lives her life. No, I should say I don't know her personally other than through Groove and through online connections, but she lives out her purpose every day. If you go on her website or if you talk to her for a minute, she will tell you that she's on a mission to combat loneliness in the world. And empathy is such an important skill. And even the Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, has talked about this epidemic of loneliness is creating a public health crisis. So I think it's one thing to recognize the dangers of loneliness. And that seems like such a massive and large problem. But then to watch a young woman, Taylor, actually putting into action how to combat loneliness, that's kind of a nebulous concept. And she does it all day, every day with such grace. And she's so winsome that she's taken this community of people from all over the world, all walks of life, and really knit them together in the Groove community. So not someone you're going to necessarily read about yet, although I wouldn't put it past her, but I just adore her. I think she's on fire.
100 times agree. I got to try out Groove with Taylor, and I sat in with her and I think one or two other people, and it surprised me how effective it was at helping. So I have ADHD, and helping me to actually focus on this time-boxed task execution, and like you said, make connections and be accountable to someone other than myself. So what a neat solution that she has built. And yeah, she is always a ball of sunshine.
I highly recommend. She does these monthly goal planning sessions that have become like a monthly ritual for me. So even if you're not on Groove Daily, I highly recommend those. And I second everything you said. I was on, I had set a personal deadline of wrapping up this article yesterday. And I tell myself that I really only like to write with my morning brain, but I just wanted to get this silly thing done. So I had this ritual yesterday. I did a groove and went for a walk, did a groove and went for a walk. And I got the whole thing checked off. So
I feel you. I have been trying to get this one post published for like 2 weeks now. So maybe I need to try that out today.
Even get it done
today.
Today.
So I've been trying, before I wrote the book that I'm publishing this year, I wanted to write an article about the creator economy in the summer of 2022, and I wrote that article yesterday.
We got to get you on Groove. You were on Groove. Well,
but just to say that, like, it takes, there's lots of things in life, right? So women can only do so many things, and we pack. This is what the one thing that I love and hate relationship with women is we are so determined to do so many things, but we also think that we can do more things. I don't know about you, but think there's I feel like I can do so much more than I can actually do. So I've been setting my expectations a lot lower these days and just bringing them down. And I think one of the attributes of successful women is that ability to see realistically, what can we actually accomplish in certain amounts of time. So I think one of the helpful things as we're talking about these amazing women, what traits do they have that are common, like that we can pull out and that we can see in ourselves, and then we can see in each other to support each other and encourage each other. And I think that's one of those things is sometimes it is procrastination, and other times it's the fact that we're prioritizing other things that are just more important. It wasn't important for me to write that blog post. It was important for me to write my book. So I wrote my book, and that was what was important. And it just took me a long time to write my book. And in my standards, it took me a long time, but it took me 6 months. And some people it takes them.
That is unheard of. Yeah.
Right. Some people it takes crazy. 6 years. So anyway, I just wanted to point out, like, yes, use the tools. She's amazing. I've interviewed her on the Community Strategy podcast. So if you're interested in learning more about Taylor, you can go back to an episode of the Community Strategy podcast and listen to the episode with Taylor.
You want to hear a secret about your book, Deb? I had never met you, never heard of you, but I saw that you were writing a book. I don't know where I saw it. And I saw that you had a Kickstarter campaign or like some kind of campaign. And I was like, I'm going to support that. So I supported your book like long before I ever dreamed I would ever have a conversation with you. And here we are.
And that's what it's like to support women, just because we're women and we want to support and succeed. Just like
absolutely. Absolutely.
And I used I used a platform specifically for women funding. I use I Fund Women because I really wanted to make the point that
supporting women.
we're supporting women and women need support. Hello.
That's great.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us a little bit more about I Fund Women? I know one of the things we wanted to cover today was organizations also that are doing really good things to not just talk about supporting women, but actually have that be part of their mission.
I'll drop in the chat the I Fund Women link so you can go on their website and check out their resources. The other reason I did extensive research about all the platforms to decide on what crowdfunding source I was going to use or what platform I was going to use. The reason I picked I Fund Women was not only because of supporting women, but it was also because they had a lot of free tools and resources and checklists, and they had like this whole training program basically to teach you how to do a crowdfunding campaign. They also have live calls and a Slack channel. So there was a lot of resources. It's hard to do crowdfunding, especially during a downturn, an economic downturn. So I didn't pick a particularly good time to do a crowdfunding campaign, but at the same time, they support and give back. So, and they say those who receive coaching, so they also do coaching, and then they say that helps you raise more money. And I did do a coaching session with somebody that did help give me some insights around my page and like improvements.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that.
Lots of resources and support for women out there. They also help you kind of think about ways to get funding as far as like grants and things like that, because I think
that's cool.
The other thing we don't think about is like, what are alternative ways than me like funding my business with a credit card? Like, is there some other way for me to like fund my business? If I have a savings account and I have savings, but then I run out of that, then what happens? Then I'm using my credit cards. Then what happens?
Yeah.
We don't really learn this stuff and nobody's teaching us this stuff. So there's a little bit of resources there, but there's a lot of good resources as far as like grants and funding for women. And there's programs, and some of it does cost money and things like that. But I would say it's helpful to just go out and start doing some research to see what's available, especially in your local community. I have felt really supported by local community programs. And one of the communities that I've been a really good part of is the Polka Dot Ladies, actually. I don't know if you're all familiar with the Polka Dot Powerhouse. Polka Dot Powerhouse is, they have chapters across the US. I think they're in other countries as well. And I joined them last year for in-person meetups. Previously, Kate is in the audience, by the way. Hi, Kate. And Kate and I met at a networking event years and years ago, which was called Central Pennsylvania Association for Female Executives. And it was the short version of that was called CPAFE. And I was on the marketing board of CPAFE. I was also a board chair and on the committee for speakers at some point, I think, too. But hi, it's so good to see you. But we met years and years ago in supporting other women. So I wanted to just ask Kate, if you wanted to say anything about it, I'm happy to have you share. Would love to hear from you if you had any thoughts.
It is so good to see you, and I've been following your journey on LinkedIn with what you're doing on your platform, Deb. I've been very impressed and definitely excited to be able to just sit here and listen to your International Women's Day presentation. I think that there is much for us to be supporting for each other and learning, and it's always nice to have these platforms. So thanks for that quick hello, and it's really nice to see what you're doing. And again, I'm a big supporter and follower, Deb, and excited to see you have a book coming out soon.
Thanks, Kate.
I wanted to go back to what you were saying about women and their, like, something that makes them perhaps unique. And I see that we have Shannon Goldwater in our audience. And the point I'm trying to make is that women often, rather than sinking into their own adversity, try to make the world better. And I will try to say this without tears. I'm glad she has her camera off. Shannon is an incredible person and mom and advocate for children, for families who have kids with pediatric feeding disorder. Shannon created a global organization called Feeding Matters after her kids were born, triplets, all of whom were tube fed. And so imagine triplets who cannot eat. And Shannon chose that time in her life to start an organization that brings together gastroenterologists and therapists and families to really gain support and awareness for pediatric feeding disorder. And through her efforts and the efforts of the organization, took what was a relatively unknown, marginalized problem and has actually gotten it into the DSM. So I met Shannon when I was at a season in our life that was lower than low. We had a little boy who could not, I mean, we still have a little boy, but at the time he couldn't eat at all. And our gastroenterologist at Duke encouraged me to get involved with Feeding Matters. And I went, and hearing Shannon share her story, I was sobbing in the audience, thinking there's actually another person alive who understands what I've had to go through. And, oh, sorry, Shannon. I sat on our bed until like 2 a.m. in our PJs and have gotten involved in Feeding Matters. And just, I think it probably sparked something in me that led me down this career path now that things are more stable in our family, to wanting to take, help individuals with a strong mission pull together a community to make them a movement. And Shannon is such an inspiration for someone who has done that and has helped so many families around the globe. So, yay, Shannon. I appreciate you so much. I wish we could see your face, but
Thanks for sharing that, Laura.
yeah, you should all know about her. And if you have a child with pediatric feeding disorder, look up Feeding Matters. It is an amazing organization.
That was beautiful, and I'm glad that I wore my waterproof mascara today.
Yeah.
The mom is weeping inside. Thank you so much for sharing that story. And Shannon, thank you so much for joining us and for all the work that you do. Clearly, we need groups like Feeding Matters to support mothers, to support women, to support people who are going through hard times, and we don't have that knowledge in either the medical or the social services or the other spaces. I mean, I've been, we all have our challenges, especially as moms, but, my kids have had their different issues. I have one who is neurodivergent, and we have had everything from the schools to the medical system failing to support her in the way that she needs. And it is a constant battle. So I definitely appreciate that you have dedicated your work to a cause that supports moms and their kids.
She's a rock star.
I recently heard a episode of, I don't know if anybody's familiar with We Can Do Hard Things. Anybody familiar with that? It's a podcast, and I'm going to drop a link in the chat there. It's a podcast that I've started to listen to this year, and it has literally just been so motivating for me because they talk about so much, so many conversations that we just don't have. We just don't have these conversations, like just how to have difficult conversations in general. And the most recent episode, they had Gloria Steinem on, and just talking about, history of, people who, she set the stage as a feminist. And there's, thinking about, it wasn't that long ago when women couldn't vote, when we didn't have these rights. And I know that we don't want to, we want to stay positive with this, but we also want to just thank those women and rejoice in that and say, we have a lot of work to do going forward. There's a lot of things, there's a lot of ways that we can collaborate as women to lift each other up. And I'm just thankful for those women that came before us that make this possible, that make us, that paved the way for us to.
Thank you for saying that. That is so true. There are, we are standing on the shoulders of so many strong women, and women whose names we don't know, and women who have impacted us in our personal lives, and also just changed the society. So I always appreciate an emphasis on positivity and appreciation and gratitude. So thank you. I was never someone who wanted to be with the mean girls. Like, I just don't understand the mean girls. What's the point? I'd much rather.
I have thoughts. I have teenage girls.
I want to be with the nice girls. I've always wanted to be with the nice girls.
I think there is this sense of like safety and protection. If you get into a pack of mean girls and it's like a pack of coyotes, like they just bite everyone around them first so that they don't get attacked. And it is wild. I mean, I have the most empathetic and sensitive kids, and my girls are constantly confused and frustrated and upset when people, especially other girls at school, are just like picking on them or just being rude. And I will tell you, I am not probably a typical parent in the sense that my daughter came home the other day, same neurodivergent. I love her. She's brilliant. But, she is extremely sensitive and she struggles with social situations. And this girl at school has been picking on her since Halloween, when she dressed up as a fox, essentially. And they have been teasing her and saying she's a furry and like making animal noises at her. And I'm like, it's Halloween, you weirdos. What is wrong with you? And it's really hard to not be there with her. But she comes home and she's like, this girl was like barking at me today in class. And I was like, you know what you need to say to her next time she barks at you? You just tell her, sorry, I don't speak bitch. Like, I'm sorry. I grew up being picked on by the mean girls too. And it's like, I am somebody who will be the first one to stand up for you and the first one to lift you up And if you fall, I will pick you up and I will be there to support you, but I will not tolerate, especially girls picking on other girls. That's not okay, you know? And it's like, in middle school, the best thing you can do is just like protect yourself and find your people and survive until life gets better.
It makes me think of another amazing woman is Dr. Elizabeth Laugesen. She may also be someone you have not heard of. She runs a clinic called the Peers Clinic at UCLA, and it's all about helping kids and young adults with social interactions. And I believe I don't know if they focus exclusively on neurodivergent kids, but the UCLA Peers Clinic is something to look up. And Dr. Elizabeth Laugesen, another strong female, runs that. So
I'll drop the link in the chat.
Jamie, thank you.
Quick, fast. But that's great, Laura. Thank you. I will look into that because honestly, I am at my wit's end. I'm like, how do I support these girls navigating what is already a difficult time in their lives? And why do they have to be so mean to each other, you know? And how much of that then pervades into adulthood, where I've seen so many women in leadership who are punching down at other women. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be this way. You know, we're not a threat to each other. We can all lift each other up and succeed together. Stop.
The biggest thing I've learned is that I can't control anybody else, and I can't control what anybody else is going to say, do, act, or whatever. I can control how I respond, and I care about what I care about. I can choose. I need to control. I'm working on mindset every day of my life from now until I die, of like controlling this, because that's all that really matters, because that's how I decide what I'm going to be doing with my life.
Yep.
And that stuff, I wish I could go back in my life and tell myself to have no interest in those words that people gave me, because it left me with a lifetime of pain that I've been trying to deal with my whole life. And if I could do one thing, it would be just to say, Deb, you matter, you're important, and it doesn't matter what anybody else says. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. The only person that matters is you, is me. I care about lots of other people. It's not that I don't care about people. I care about people, but acting, I have choices about how I choose to live my life. I can't control anybody else's actions. I need to stand up for myself when that seems right, when it feels right for me. And that's it. I'm not going to tear down other women because that just doesn't feel right to me.
That is, so now I'm thinking that, thank you for sharing that, Deb. And it reminds me of yet another amazing woman. Are you familiar with Dr. Kristen Neff, who is like the self-compassion guru of the world? I think she's brilliant. And I also really appreciate and have learned so much from Amy Porterfield, who obviously she specializes in digital marketing and courses in particular, but again, not someone I know personally, but I see her working so hard to elevate others and lift them up. And so much of her work includes mindset, and she's so abundantly generous with the expertise that she shares with the world. Clearly wildly successful, but doing it in a way to elevate those who are around and with her. And I hold that up as a model for how I want to be in business, giving back more than I am taking. And so anyway, thank you for sharing that. There's so many women. I just keep thinking of all these amazing people. I think
it's also helpful to recognize that some of those women also really highlight the fact that we have to have boundaries. Yes. And some of these women set really clear boundaries, and that's how they've really become successful. Boundaries help us define where the line in the sand is and where, what we're going to do and what we're not going to do. And I think a lot of women are just constantly asked to just do more and more. And it's like, with jobs, it's like something I've been used to for most of my life, is whenever I am at a company and then I just feel like I'm doing a lot already. And then there's another thing and another thing and another thing. And my salary is not going up, but there's more things that are happening that I have to do. And I mean, entrepreneurship is a lot of that, but not getting paid for any of it.
Yeah.
until you figure out the structure and how you run your business, right? But just to say that women typically are taking on so many things and saying no, setting a boundary, understanding what's important to me, where my limitations are, knowing, again, going back to what you were saying, Laura, about Kristen Neff's self-compassion of like, I was realizing that I was giving so much to so many other people and nothing was left for me. My tank was empty constantly.
And it doesn't help you, right? Like that was something. So if I were to go back and talk to my younger self, I would have told myself, you need to learn how to start saying no without apologizing now, because you will be so derailed by other people's priorities and by other people's expectations that you'll never progress. And it wasn't until I started saying, you know what? No, actually, I don't think that's a growth opportunity for me. Or, you know what? No, I really don't have time to add that to my plate right now, that I started to actually see success and growth in my career. I felt like I was plateauing. I felt like I was constantly being overworked and, abused at work. And I realized, you know what? I said no one time and suddenly I got promoted, and like I'm doing leadership things now instead of all whatever tasks nobody else wants to do. I'm not getting stuck with those anymore. And I think it comes from this place, and I'm going somewhere with this. It comes from this place of being socialized as someone who is, assigned female at birth or female presenting. We are raised to be givers and be caregivers and be, constantly putting ourselves last. And there's this book that I recommend to all the women in my life, but especially all of the professionals who are going through this challenge. And it's called Burnout: The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle. And it is by two other amazing women, sisters, Emily and Amelia Nagoski. And it has been completely mind altering for me, in terms of how I approach my relationships, how I approach work, how I, especially now trying to grow a consulting business and having to do the uncomfortable things like negotiating and sales outreach type stuff and all those things that make me uncomfortable, but also learning when to say, you know what, this is not worth the money you're paying me. Like, not my circus, not my monkeys. Good luck with that. And, even just price setting, asking for what you're worth. And that goes for anybody who's doing salary negotiations too, realizing that you are not helping yourself by putting yourself last. And so I highly recommend this book for every woman to read, because it is very much focused on that caregiver the giver versus taker relationships, and how we often find ourselves as the givers and what that does to us. So
I appreciate your saying that. And it makes me, as we are community leaders, it makes me so grateful for community, because I find that I have very squishy boundaries. I'm not only am I female, but I'm from the South. And it can be tricky, because I do want to give, and I was a stay-at-home mom, and all we do is like serve and give. So being in communities and being surrounded by others and having people who can encourage us and give us help us create those boundaries is so valuable. And I know that I greatly benefit from being in community with you two ladies, from being in a feeding community with Shannon. And I really try to bring community into any area of my life where I'm either A, want to accomplish something great, or B, I am feeling a challenge in some way. So for any women listening today, if there's something that you're struggling with or something that you're trying to achieve, whether it's running a 5K or starting your own company or negotiating a new salary, ask yourself if you have a supportive network around you. And if not, maybe how could you find that either in an online community or local, or what do you think about that, Deb? How people can, go ahead.
You're reminding me of the other person I wanted to highlight, which was Gina B from Mighty Networks, the founder of Mighty Networks, who has these amazing communities, and what hopefully will replace Facebook in the future is going to be these little micro communities that are really niche and unique and led by amazing, unique people. Communities are like the future. I just believe that so much because, like you're saying, we are just not capable of doing all of this on our own. We can, if you really want to, but I know what that's like to do a lot of these things on your own. And I'm sure that a lot of people, have that experience, and it's not fun. And doing things with other people is just more fun, and it gets you farther, faster. Those are just facts. That's why I became a community consultant. I started a community in 2020 because I had been a member of a community for 2.5 years. Female communities are sometimes hard to find. Women-only communities are sometimes hard to find the right fit, because I think it does depend on your needs and what how people are connecting and collaborating inside. So I think that does take some due diligence to kind of figure out the one that's going to be your best fit. So it might not be the one that if you find one and you don't like it, don't think that all women's groups are that way. So I want to just put that caveat in there, because I felt like that with some groups that I was like, oh, is this how all women's networking groups are? And I'm like, I don't want to just talk about babies and getting married, because neither one of those things are things that I want to talk about. So anyway, just being open-minded about different ways to interact, like Laura was saying, but just having communities that you can, places that you can trust. There's a book by Lori Harder, who's another person that I really liked. I don't know if you're familiar with Lori Harder, but she wrote a book called Tribes. Forget what it's called now. But I met her and I learned about her. I'm going to try to remember what her book was called. She has a podcast called
A Tribe Called Bliss.
Yeah, that's what it's called. She wrote a book called A Tribe Called Bliss, and it's about starting your own little networking women's tribes, which is really cool. So if you don't know of a local, women's group, or maybe you don't want to go scouring the internet for an online group, you could pick that book up, and maybe that'll give you some insights around ways to collaborate or find other women who want to do what you want to do, or talk with people that you want to talk with.
I love that. All these book suggestions. We need a book club now, Deb.
Yeah.
I ran a book club for 2.5 years.
I used to say I wanted a book club, and then I decided to start a podcast party because I realized I don't have time to read all the books. So instead I just have a podcast party.
That's great. I want to mention a couple of things here because I love this topic, and it was also something that was kind of game changing for me. Another direction that folks can go, and that worked really well for me, is you may in your next job search or your next negotiation choose to hire a negotiation coach. And I did that when I left SAP and I went to MongoDB. And I will tell you, it was such a difference from previous negotiation experiences just to have somebody to go to and be like, okay, here's what they said. What do I do? And they go, well, what do you want? Okay, well, let's talk through that. What's realistic in this range? Here's all your data. You can do this. This is totally valid to ask for, or no, that's probably crazy. But I mean, you can ask for it, but don't expect too much, right? And so having a hype crew, somebody who is just there for you when you start to doubt yourself and you go, I don't know, am I asking too much? Am I expecting too much? I think is so critical for success for women, regardless of what we're doing. To have that group is pivotal. And I think more of us need to find those people. I want to highlight another couple of organizations that may be helpful for folks. So one is the Mom Project, and that is actually focused on helping women who are mothers stay active in their work, continue to work, continue to grow their careers. They have a talent community. So that's something that is worth checking out if you're looking for a group and that speaks to you. The other one that I want to highlight is the Higher Tech Ladies group. Now they have a free membership, but they also have a paid membership that they only open certain times of the year. And it is really heavily focused on finding inclusive companies that are committed to hiring women into, leadership, powerful roles, and helping you to grow your skills and your network to get there. So they do things like training, and I did a leadership boot camp with them not that long ago. And so that's a really good one to get involved with as well. Another women-started, women-run organization. That one is run by Allison Esposito Mendez. And I have followed her journey as she started that and has grown it. And that's been incredible to watch as well. And I see there's another few links in the chat also. So if folks are following along in the chat, we can dig into any of those, or you can grab those links and check them out.
And I love how some of these organizations started. I heard Gesha, I can't remember her last name, is it Haas from Dreamers and Doers? That started at brunch. And she had a brunch with some friends about trying to raise funding, or I don't even necessarily know the whole story, but I just think these really humble beginnings of women coming together, and just following the progression, women create amazing things. And, it just starts with an idea. There's I wanted to share a story that, I'm sorry if I make you cry, but it's another story from our community of a friend who was reading a book called The 100 Houses, I believe, which took place in Charlotte, North Carolina. And it was one woman who was really moved by homelessness, for people experiencing homelessness. And my friend Molly read this book and just felt like a bolt of lightning had struck her. And she was inspired to do something similar here in Raleigh. And Molly got involved with a local organization, and through her connections and expertise and the organization, they have, I had to write this down so I would not forget, but they raised over $26 million. And Kings Ridge is going to be the neighborhood, and it will support women experiencing homelessness by providing homes and houses and all kinds of services. And Kings Ridge is estimated to single-handedly reduce homelessness in Wake County by 10%. All because of this woman, Molly's friendships that she made at a local women's center. She got to know these women. And Kate is saying she's in Raleigh too. Oh my goodness. Okay, that's crazy. Well, anyway, Molly got to know these women through the women's shelter and realized they were sleeping in a parking lot, and was just so moved by them that she took action, and her action and her inspiration attracted other people to her mission. And I just think it's incredible that one person's vision could have such a tremendous impact. So if there's something on your heart today, or something that you feel outraged about, I encourage each one of us to take action, and because we just are capable of so much more than we could ever imagine. And Kate, yes, we will definitely meet up. We can help Molly with her houses.
Such a powerful story.
Love to.
That's amazing.
Such a powerful story. And it's so amazing, like, how women can band together and make change. Is, do you talk about outrage? Well, losing rights that we thought we had recently, it just is phenomenal that we're still fighting these things. And if there's something that you feel like supporting, like women's rights, like the right to choose, there's women that agree with that and want to support you. So I feel totally, this shouldn't be an issue in this time frame, but so amazing that it's been, we have the power to make change. And it's about women coming together and saying that we are worthy of these things, and that people don't have the right to tell us what to do with our body.
You had asked us, Deb, to prepare for today's call about a historical figure who may have influenced us. And I cannot help, it might be like, maybe everyone has this person in mind, but for me, it's Mother Teresa, and just her emphasis on kindness. And she has so many quotes that are well known, but one of my favorite, she talks about poverty being, she says, the most terrible poverty is loneliness. And I think that's so true. And again, it goes back to why I've chosen to work in community and why I feel so privileged to work in community. And then her other quote that I really like, and I remind my kids, is what we need is to love without getting tired. And I just find that so inspiring, because when you're caregiving for people, especially, if you've got any medical needs, or like what Mother Teresa does, it can be very tiring, but what we need is to love without getting tired. So, and Ilker's here on the call. For those of you who don't know Ilker, he is in Turkey, and we send you and your country so much love. And you can probably tell us some amazing stories. The chief hype officer.
Thank you for the shout out. I'm having a little bit of a sort of a technical problem, but I really have valued everything that you have been sharing. So if you're not seeing me, it's because of a technical infrastructural situation. But my heart is with you, and everything that you're saying. Of course, in terms of community, and in terms of just women impacting community, it has been a very, very important factor in Turkey trying to cope with the crisis. Of course, that's valid for everywhere around the world. But I guess the awareness and everything that you're sharing here today towards just women's successes being shared across is really, really crucial in getting people sort of back on their feet and then basically being able to put what's happened behind, and then look forward in life, and basically make sure that an event of similar situation or a similar situation is dealt with. So there we go. Yeah, fixed it in a way. Anything that happens in the future is basically dealt with the least amount of damage to society. So community is really important, and all the success stories that you're sharing here are important. They have direct and indirect results in future situations in Turkey and of course beyond. So thank you very much for the mention.
Thank you, Ilker. Ilker is one of those people who really embodies allyship for women, especially because, I mean, he just, even for me, as I went through my layoff at the end of last year and have tried to make a successful transition into this consulting space, he freely takes the time to talk to me and give me feedback and answer questions, and just a phenomenal person who is invested in the success of those around him. And so we need more people like that. I wanted to say about the historical person topic. I am a huge Hamilton fan. If you follow my Twitter feed, you've probably seen more Hamilton GIFs on my feed than anything else. But Eliza Hamilton was Alexander Hamilton's wife, and she did so much after he died to elevate his story, but also just to commemorate the people who contributed to the success of the revolution. And it made me think about how in all of these movements that we've talked about with, building women's rights up and protecting them and working together, how powerful women are in community-led movements. And especially in times when, like, politically or legally, we didn't have power. We didn't have financial power. We didn't have the ability to own property. And so we have had to learn over the years how to influence without authority, how to move things forward when we didn't have the ability to actively, aggressively go after them ourselves. We had to get men on board. And I think that is a thing that feminism and, any sort of women's rights activity needs to keep in mind is, we need men. We need men to support us, and we need men to step up and do the work on their end, because damn it, we're tired. We are tired, and we're fighting and fighting and fighting, but we can only do so much without our allies. So thank you, Ilker. Thank you to the other men out there who are also stepping up to clear roadblocks and mentor and, step up and put themselves out there to protect and elevate women. I think that is an important thing to talk about as well.
Yeah,
That
such
is
a
so
great
beautifully
point.
said. And I will also, I know this is about women today and not necessarily about race, but we are all white women here today in the room. And so I want to just take a moment to say that we can and should be using our voices to be allies to women of color, women in other countries who don't have the privileges that we have. So this is not just about us here today, but it's also about elevating women in other parts of the world, especially where they are under persecution.
Yeah, because there's still so many places where women don't have the rights and don't have the ability to choose their own life, that aren't free to do things. And we still face, there's still such a diversity with our country, but we are here to celebrate today. And thank you for joining us. Thank you. It's great to just recognize the men that do lift other women up. And thank you to Ilker for shouting out the women today on LinkedIn. And because it's a team we're a team sport, right? We are humans and we all want to support each other. Ultimately, it's not about women versus men or the genders or the races or anything like that. It's about humanity, right? But we're just recognizing today that women haven't been recognized in a way that they really need to be today. We're recognizing that. There's a lot of other days where we need to recognize other people. Today, we're recognizing women. Yes, we are women of white women, and there's like colored women, there's trans women, there's lots of other people, women who are out there. So I think thank you to the men and who are supporting and uplifting us. Thank you to the women who are supporting each other and uplifting each other.
Before we close out, I want to throw in one more that I discovered. And so she is a Black woman and she founded Gooder, and her name is Jasmine Crow. And I learned about her in the process of doing prep for this conversation. And so I wanted to share just a little bit about what Gooder does and what she created, because I think she is amazing, as well as the other women that we've talked about today. But Gooder is focused entirely on food security and creating sustainable food waste management and making sure that, you know, we are using our excess food to deal with hunger in this country and deal with food instability. And so it is a tech company, but you know, she's built this incredible organization that is tackling one of the major social issues that we are facing in a country that has so much, but we have such terrible wealth distribution in this country that we have kids that are going hungry and entire communities that are falling apart. And so, you know, I just want to recognize the work that she's doing as well, to help address some of those things.
Jamie, thank you so much for mentioning that. That's like the number one area where I love to give is around nutrition equity. And I had never heard of that group. So thank you.
I love to hear about like women trying to make change happen and for the better. Because I feel like, you know, there's so much innovation, and while innovation is great, there's also this whole thing called, let's try to improve, you know, let's work on what we already have. Like, let's fix the systems that are broken before we innovate them to like building towers above towers, right? So I really appreciate that you shared that. So
now we need to go help Gooder make a community.
Yeah.
Well, that's,
Okay,
yeah, that could be your collaboration. You could go put together a pitch for them. So thanks for joining us. If you joined us live on YouTube or if you joined us today on Zoom, thank you so much. I'm so glad that we were able to chat about women today. I will post a recording and a recap on LinkedIn and on the Find Calm Here website. So you'll see that later today. And until the next time, I hope you are finding a little bit of calm in this day, evening, afternoon, or morning. Take care until the next time. Find calm.